Anyways, we have to write a note of kindness. Hey, how about that? How about the school mooching off of our idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That school and your kindness.
Graduation, by the way.
Right.
So technically they're not completely out.
No, they're
That was so good.
not. By the way, that's a form of flattery, right?
Wait, who's it for?
I haven't figured that out yet, but I will. You might think, what a waste of paper, but this is not.
Yeah, I was so scared. No, I'm not cold.
Always wearing a sweater.
Everybody else.
Yeah, tired.
Do you want help? I gotta help you.
There you go.
You look like you're a strong young buck. Why don't you see if you can give this a nice tear?
Yes.
Nice, yeah, nice work. Let's see. Today's recipient of our love and support is Stev.
Stev, yes. This is a great one.
We're
In
writing
another school.
Yes. I like your jeans, Liv.
Everybody else.
I like your jeans.
Stev is our recipient. Stev, wave hi to everybody in case anybody doesn't know you. That's her.
My name is Stevie.
If you watch today's video of the class, it's Stev trying to hide from the camera.
Wow, what am I getting?
Just had a great idea. If it's your day for gratitude, you will be the person I take a picture of for that class's video.
It wasn't like a
I read this note today. I was like, do you want me to write a note to myself? Like,
I remember what to say about Stev.
We start writing to other people, like the principal, and since most of you are junior, we'll write to Miss Stevenson, you'll write to Miss Francis, me for a week straight, Mr. Schultz, whoever. It makes their day.
Lindenberg.
Lindy, absolutely. It's one of my favorites.
and I was like,
Oh, I don't need
that's what we're really scared of.
I can hit our class. Am I right? Yeah, so you guys never stop talking. Yeah, I always sleep. I'm gonna visit. So garbage. Yeah.
Thank you.
You won commit road.
You look like all.
I would have been amazed.
that was a little off. I'm sorry, I wrote.
Steven. What if I call you Steven? Lars calls me Steven. Why?
Wait, tap. Wait here if I come back.
Is Bryson in here?
Yeah.
Good thing I sit down. Sorry, John.
Riley,
It's
Ray.
so huge over you. Sorry. Can you see the border thing?
Just get
Grace Hayes. Grace. Riley.
I know. It's a lot of lines. Yep. Thank you. Forgot my work. Oh, I hate when I do that.
Oh, hey, is there, I want to know Riley, but you're
No.
Today.
Why?
Filing's voice for Todd.
Oh, with the money you got?
No one's working except. I know, you work? I don't work tomorrow. No, tomorrow.
Wait, how you been?
We're just like all meeting there. So like no one in the advisory is coming. So I wanted to like, why is checking gonna be fine?
Okay, if you're not quite done, that's all right. Finish up. Give your note to, as I've just heard, Steven. I think that's kind of cute.
I'll come, but do you want to go together?
Okay, ask Riley. Riley, do you work tomorrow?
Yeah.
What are you guys doing tonight?
Good news is we only have one slide, this one. That's it. And then a couple document
This is
analysis from the reconstruction was successful side. And then let's revisit the successful writing of paper number 2. And you should have time to work.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got the porta potties right here, so you could actually use some time to come back. So this is the election map from the 1860 election. So I love looking at these because they're always fascinating. So the bottom pie chart represents the popular vote. And which candidate, by color please, won the popular vote? Who won the popular vote?
Lincoln.
Okay, my question was sort of intentionally vague. Why do you say Lincoln? How did you do that?
59%.
He got the most popular votes, Mr. Cook just said. Did he?
I mean,
Any other-
saying the most and saying the majority are two different things.
Okay, very good.
So I don't-
Morality.
Like, once again, he got a plurality, right? He got more than anyone else. But did he get most?
No.
Well, that's a little bit vague. More people, one way of saying it is more people voted against him than for him, but yet more people voted for him than anyone else. You can see that it was a crowded election field. The Democrats ended up splitting. They could not agree on a position on slavery. And so at the Democratic National Convention that they held that year, they addressed slavery, and the one segment of the Democratic Party said, look, let's just go popular sovereignty. Let's say that's our position. That's not pro-slavery. That's not anti-slavery. It's just simply a position of saying, we'll let you decide. And the Southern Democrats said, nope, we need to protect what is a legal institution. We need to say that. If elected, our candidate will protect what is currently legal. And the Northern Democrats said, we're not doing that. And so the Southern Democrats stormed out and created the Southern Democratic Party, incredibly temporary party. They had exactly one election, and then they reunified, I guess. And they had something called Breckinridge, John C. Breckinridge. The Republicans had a strictly Northern candidate. Not only did Lincoln not win a single Southern state, he did not win a single Southern vote. Nobody voted for Lincoln in the South, unless they wrote it in, I suppose. Anyone want to know how I know that? I mean, how do I know that? He wasn't even on the ballot in any southern state. He was not even an option. Nobody voted for him. And by the way, he didn't bother. Do you remember, I can't remember, was it yesterday, when I showed you a previous election map and the Republicans realized that had they won Pennsylvania and Indiana and Illinois, they would have won the presidency? That was the strategy. That was the blueprint. So Lincoln wins strictly on the basis of northern votes. The main opponent, popular vote-wise, was Mr. Bluish-Gray here, which, if you travel down, was a guy by the name of Stephen Douglas, the same guy who beat him 2 years previously for an Illinois Senate seat, is his main competition in the popular vote. Now, if you try and find Stephen Douglas on the electoral vote map, he wins Missouri, and he wins half of New Jersey. New Jersey back then split their electoral vote. Why does this make sense? How could he have finished second place popular vote wise, but in the electoral vote, a distant fourth? How can these two things be true?
Well, because there's more of more citizens that are council members, right?
You got less than half of all the northern states, so they're
Okay, very good. What this tells you is that Stephen Douglas finished second in all of the northern states. He finished second. He lost a bunch of close elections in the northern states. So we got more votes than John C. Breckinridge in the north. But that if you don't win a state, you're screwed as far as the electoral vote. You got to win the state. And Mr. Douglas did not win any of the northern states. His message of popular sovereignty does not resonate with anti-slavery northerners, and it does not resonate with pro-slavery southerners. It's a mushy position, right? Vote for me and I'll let you decide. But that's not let's get rid of slavery, and that's not let's protect slavery. It's a neither position. Everyone's like, yeah. It's kind of like going to Nelson's Ice Cream and getting vanilla. You know, like, yeah, okay, all right, but come on, get black cherry or get Superman. Okay, very good. So Lincoln's now the president. Think about that if you're a southern state. You have someone who is the leader of the nation who only represents half the nation. He didn't even bother trying to woo your vote. Right? And exactly. States starting with South Carolina and on down. Basically from South Carolina, I could draw a straight line going west. These states, and then throw in Florida, all seceded. After the election, they seceded. Something else then happens, which will draw in the border Confederacy states, the next event. What I'm telling you, though, is these states seceded because Lincoln got elected, not because of what's about to happen soon in Virginia. No, not Virginia, South Carolina. Okay, any questions? One other quick note here. Meanwhile, the Sioux Indians have started an uprising. So did you know the United States government, the Union Army, fought 2 wars at the same time? They fought the Confederacy and they fought the Sioux. Most soldiers from the Minnesotas and the Dakotas were fighting the Sioux during the Sioux uprising. In fact, the largest execution in American history took place in Mankato, Minnesota, right in the middle of the Civil War. Something like 100 Sioux were all hanged at the same time in Mankato. So a nice thing for Mankato. They're on the map. They executed 100 Sioux. Oh, great. Okay, any questions here? That's it.
Why is it hanged instead of hung?
Yes, isn't that interesting? Clothes are hung and people are hanged.
I don't get it. I don't like it either.
You don't like it?
That's the English language.
English. Yeah, I have your English teachers informed you that it is now acceptable to use the pronoun them to refer to a singular person if you're not sure of gender?
Yeah.
I hate it. I will not allow it. Don't do that in my essays. You will put him/her. Them, that's plural.
Could you feel it?
Yes, of course. Okay. Very good. Let's attack a document or two for the side arguing that Reconstruction was a success. Yes, dear. S-E-C-E-D-E. Not succeed. Secede. And were you the one that wrote succeed in your essay?
Succeed from the union.
We're going to succeed. Well, that's great.
You will not fail. I don't know.
Secession was a succession.
Wait, doesn't secession start with a C?
Did you just say secession starts with a T? No, S.
Oh my goodness.
They were, but I was.
Secede, succeed.
Yeah. Secession.
Cession. The Mexican cession is when they ceded land. What's your question now?
Secession.
Secession. Okay. So far in this class, we've learned that secession is when the KKK were formed. That secession is when former slaves, while appearing to have the right to vote, really didn't. And we're going to have to try and figure out, well, why didn't they? Didn't the 15th Amendment guarantee that the right to vote could not be denied based on race? And yet somehow Southern states succeeded in preventing the very people that seemed to be guaranteed the right to vote by a constitutional amendment, they prevented them from voting. How'd they do that? We'll have to figure that out. And that Reconstruction was the time period when the people that were former slaves, their economic situation didn't really change all that much. They continued to be employees on the same plantations, working for the same people, basically doing the same thing. Nothing changed. So the argument so far is that Reconstruction failed because the violence that continued, thanks KKK, the political situation did not change, and the economic situation really didn't change. Now let's argue the other side that Reconstruction actually was successful. Okay, so this would be document number 9. I said this before, the document itself is what is inside the rectangle. All that stuff beforehand, that is context. That is so you understand what's going on. Oakley dokley, let's attack 9 and 10 and then call it a day as far as this is concerned. Did anyone in here have document 9? You're kidding. I just happened to round up the very students who avoided document 9. All right, fine. We'll figure it out together. Who is the writer of this bad boy? Eric Foner. He's another giant historian. In fact, I do believe that we're ordering his textbook to replace the American pageant ones that are currently in this class. Mr. Foner's history textbook is the one I hope to order for next year. Great book. Great historian. One of my favorites, actually. All right, so that tells you, is this a primary, secondary document? Secondary, right? Allow me to read it. Okay. Congress approved the 14th Amendment, which forbade states from depriving any citizen equal protection of the laws, barred many Confederates from holding state or national office, and threatened to reduce the South's representation in Congress if black men continued to be kept from voting. Do those things sound good? Forbade states from depriving citizens equal protection of the laws, barred Confederates from holding office, and said, hey, South, if you don't let blacks vote, we are going to eliminate the number of representatives that you have in the House of Representatives. Are those good things? Yes, those are good things. The argument then is pretty basic. Why did Reconstruction succeed? Okay, be specific here. Identify the thing that was, yes. Well,
Okay.
you're being a little bit too specific. Identify the thing that existed now that did not exist before. The 14th Amendment. That's it. In my opinion, the second most important amendment in the entire Constitution is the 14th Amendment. First Amendment is my king, yes. Free speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom of petition. That's it. But to me, it's the 14th Amendment that is right up there as well, because it is the 14th Amendment which defines who is an American. It defines it. The 14th Amendment says, you know who an American is? It's these people. And does anyone know how that sentence is finished? Who are Americans?
These people.
Who is, how do we know you're an American? Even today. Who's an American? What? If you're born here. The end. The end. If you're born here, you're an American. If one of your parents is an American, you're an American.
Even if you're born somewhere else.
Even if you're born somewhere else. So a few years ago, there was this thing called the birther movement, which argued that Barack Obama was not qualified to be president because to be president, you have to be an American your whole life. You cannot move here as a citizen of another country, become an American. You are ineligible to become president. You have to be a naturalized American. And they said Obama was born in Kenya. That means he should not have been president. Obama then provided his birth certificate, which proved he was born in Hawaii. No other president ever in our nation's history has ever had to prove that he was an American. Only Obama. He's the only one that has ever provided. In fact, he's the only one we know for sure was born in the United States. Nobody else has proven where they were born. And then people said, well, wait a minute. You were born in Hawaii, huh? Hawaii. When were you born? And Obama said he was born in like 1940 something, whatever, 50 something. And they said, aha, that means you're not an American. Do you know why?
Because they weren't like an American.
Hawaii wasn't a state. That's right. Hawaii wasn't a state. So you're not eligible to be president, Mr. Obama. And you know what? They might have a point, except they don't. Because Obama's mother is from Kansas. The end. That ends it, right? He could have been born on the moon. And he would be eligible to be president because his mom is a white girl from Kansas. The end. Go ahead.
So your mom argument.
Your mom, that's right. You could say to Obama, your mom, and he'd say, exactly. Okay, very good. So it defines who an American is. But think about that. Think that through. That means who are Americans as far as the 14th Amendment is concerned. After the Civil War is over, we now say, yep, you know what? These people, they're Americans. Blacks, former slaves, are Americans. And the 14th Amendment says they are Americans. They get to be treated like American citizens. As Americans, do you know what protections you have? You know what rights you have? All the rights in the Constitution, like freedom of speech, like the freedom to own a gun, Second Amendment. Former slaves now have that right. Like the right to vote because of the 15th Amendment. It is the 14th Amendment that says who is eligible for all the other amendments. And former slaves, you are now part of that group. It's the 14th Amendment that defines citizenship. Okay, doesn't that sound like a good thing? Okay. All right, so it sounds like it's a good thing. To be continued. All right, we'll have to kind of think that through. Like, all right, that means they're citizens. That means they get to vote, right? We'll have to look at the clever way that Southern states got around that little hurdle. All right, we can't deny them the right to vote because they're black. Damn it. What can we do? What can we do? They came up with some pretty creative ideas in a sad way. Okay, next one. One more. Document 10 then. Who read it? And there's no way people avoided this. Okay. Who's the writer of this bad boy? That's a tough question.
It is,
Okay, what is it?
Constitution.
yeah, because
It's the Constitution. Okay, there are some things where you don't have to bother identifying the author. The Constitution's one of them, right? When I read like the Constitution authored by, who gives a rip? It doesn't matter. It's the Constitution. That's all you have to say. The Constitution says. Then drop the mic. You understand what I'm saying? It's the end of the conversation about authenticity and credibility. It's the Constitution. Yeah, that's a little controversial right there. Okay, what is the argument of the document being in document 10? Why was Reconstruction successful? You with the face. What is the argument being made here? Reconstruction succeeded because, which said,
abolition of slavery.
okay, no more slavery. The end of slavery. Okay, isn't that good?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yes, it's the end of slavery. Now we have to be careful here because that's not quite right. Let's read it again. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. Very good. We cannot make them slaves because they're black, but we can make them slaves if they're convicts. Okay, so again, what I'm doing is I'm poking a hole in the argument. What I did previously was say, hey, blacks now have citizenship rights, and I'm informing you that Southern states succeeded in finding a way around that little hurdle. And so if you wanted to reject this argument, here's another one. You cannot enslave people based on their race anymore. But what Southern states did, which was rather clever, was looked at the little asterisk that says, all right, we can't enslave them because they're black, except as a punishment for crime. Now all we have to do is pass a bunch of laws that black people violate, and then we can re-enslave them, not because they're black, but because they're criminals. And that's exactly what Southern states will do. But that's a story for us. Okay. Any questions there? The end. Let's end the pain. Let's visit this. I only want to take a couple more minutes of your time and I'll give you a good 20 minutes. Yes, sir. This is how you stretch. This was Mason. Okay. I had a feeling, I had a sense that there was a little bit of confusion as class ended yesterday, and so I wanted to nip that. Okay. The stamp paper that's due this Friday.
Really?
What's the point? All right.
Wait.
Are you serious?
Oh, stamp.
The stamp paper that's due Friday. Oh, paper is due. Okay, but I mean, I fail to see the point. I think it's a good idea if you write the 3-paragraph stamp thing, because then you're well on your way to completing this bad boy. But I'm not going to require that you turn it into me Friday. Instead, next Friday, a week from Friday, this paper itself is due. Okay, and again, I want to emphasize it's the same as a Blue Book essay. There's just one more paragraph. Okay, just treat it that way. Do you agree with Genovese or do you agree with Stamp? If you agree with Genovese, then present Stamp's arguments, views of the two areas where those two disagree. Present Stamp's, this is if you agree with Genovese. Present Stamp's views of culture being a motivation and fear of punishment being a motivation. That's in 2 separate paragraphs. Present evidence which seems to support it, but then refute it. So those 2 paragraphs have a piece of document evidence and 2 pieces of historical evidence per paragraph. Have I lost anyone yet?
Could you repeat that sentence you just said? 2 documents and 2.
I didn't say 2 documents. Jetty, who do you agree with, Stamp or Genovese?
Genovese.
You agree with Genovese?
Yeah.
Okay. Your 2 paragraphs presenting Stamp's point of view will present Stamp's view that culture was not a motivation in a document piece of evidence, a historical piece of evidence which seems to support Stamp's point of view, and then a second piece of historical evidence which says, but it's not true.
Oh,
Okay, no mention of Genovese.
Right.
No mention of Genovese. And you do that for the, again, how many people think Genovese's view is the one you're going to defend? Okay. You people, what do you mean you people? You people are going to be arguing in a paragraph Stamp's point of view, which you will state in your topic sentence is incorrect. Stamp mistakenly believes that culture was not a motivation for slaves to work hard. You will then present a quote from Stamp's point of view. You will then prove it, sort of, and then you will reject it. 1 quote, 2 historical pieces of evidence, no mention of Genovese. In the next paragraph, you will do the same thing with fear of punishment. Stamp mistakenly argues that fear of punishment was not a motivation. You will then find a quote, that's document evidence. You will then find a historical piece of evidence, and then a second historical piece of evidence. The second piece of historical evidence refutes the argument. The first one seemingly proves it. The second one refutes it. And then you will present Genovese's point of view on those 2 issues. Do you get it? It's the same as your Blue Book essay. Okay, I haven't gotten to the one little exception. Okay. I assume that if you did not raise your hand just a few seconds ago, that means you're defending Stamp's point of view. You will do the same thing, only you will be presenting Genovese's point of view, which you will prove with document evidence, seemingly prove with historical evidence, and then refute with your second piece of historical evidence. You will do that for culture. You will do that for punishment. It's exactly the same as your Blue Book essays. Exactly. And now the one exception. You have to have an additional paragraph. The additional paragraph is the one they agree on. They both argue that economic incentive worked. That paragraph will have you got to have a quote for Genovese, you got to have a quote from Stamp, and then you have to have a piece of evidence supporting.
So the piece of evidence supporting both can be from either document?
Correct.
Okay.
Or from any other source of yours. You all are open to go and find a piece of evidence supporting or refuting. You're welcome to do that. You don't have to. You can. Yes, dear.
For that paragraph you just talked about, do you want it to go doc, historical doc, historical?
So that would be Roman numeral 2.
2, yeah.
And it says doc evidence for Genovese, doc evidence for Stamp,
Then historical.
and then a piece of historical evidence supporting both.
Oh, okay.
Right? I just picture it, right? Genovese argues that economic incentive worked. He says, quote, blah, 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 blah. Stamp agrees. He says, okay, I get it. They both think so. And now prove it. Awesome. And then one time, somewhere, you synthesize. You synthesize somewhere. Another situation where punishment is a motivation factor or is not a motivating factor. Another situation where economic is or isn't a factor. Another situation where culture seems to play in somehow. Look throughout American history. It's everywhere. Find one. Put it somewhere. Now that synthesis can be a quote. It doesn't have to be. You can have a historical example. That's synthesis. You can have a quote. That's synthesis. Whatever. Okay. Do you feel better?
Slightly. Not really, though, because we still have an 8-paragraph paper due next Friday.
7.
7-paragraph paper due next Friday.
And then the last thing is somewhere in your concluding paragraph, just tell me your winner? Which school of thought? Yesterday, who was it that said, "Gee, Stamp really seems like he's a," and which one was it? And it was like right on. Oh, which one was it? It was really good. Find it. Psychohistory focuses on the motivations of any group. They're in alphabetical order there, right? I mean, isn't that what they're doing? They're trying to find out what is the motivation of slaves. That fits. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think that's a good one. You don't have to go with that one, but it's
For
kind of
Stamp?
easy, right? I mean, there are others, but I mean, that seems like an obvious one. Okay, done talking. You got 20-ish minutes here. Might as well use it. At the very least, attack a Kia or two.
Oh, I should do that.
So again, the stamp paper that's due this Friday is nil. No, don't do it.
No.
I mean, you're doing it anyway. So.
Can I use this computer to do the keys?
You have laptop? Oh, yeah.